Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're an active trader, you already know, you absolutely know, the acute, intense frustration of analyzing a chart, placing your trade, and then boom, you get stopped out right before the market makes the exact predicted move you were waiting for. I mean, it's infuriating, right? It's the kind of feeling that makes you literally want to throw your monitor straight out the nearest window. Well, today we're going to master logical stop-loss placement to fix exactly that. We're diving right into the mechanics of why this happens, and more importantly, how to stop it. Okay, let's dive into this. When you get stopped out by a single tick, literally just one tick, and then you have to just sit there and watch the asset sail into massive profit without you, man, it is so incredibly easy to feel like the market is personally out to get you. It feels like the market knows exactly where your specific order is, right? It feels like terrible luck, or, worse, that the whole system is just totally rigged against the retail trader. But the source material for our explainer today zeroes in on a very specific reality. It is absolutely not bad luck. It's actually a specific mechanical mistake. And I really want to validate that emotional pain point right now. It hurts precisely because you were actually right about the market direction. But as we know, being right about the direction just doesn't matter if your mechanics are fundamentally off. So I want you to ask yourself this direct question. Why do you keep getting stopped out? Like, why does this exact scenario repeat itself so predictably, trade after trade? If we completely scrap the idea of some malicious, all-knowing market entity that's just watching your specific retail brokerage account to steal your money, well, we're left with a purely objective, mechanical truth. There is a structural, highly predictable reason your stops are continuously getting triggered right before the big move. And here's the punchy reveal. The root cause? Stop-loss placement errors. That's the whole shebang. Your ongoing frustration boils down to this specific, predictable concept rather than some sort of malicious market manipulation. Think of it this way. When you place a stop loss, you are essentially leaving a digital footprint in the market. And when millions of traders make the exact same stop loss placement errors, well, they create a highly predictable pattern. You aren't falling victim to a grand conspiracy here. Actually, scratch that. You're really just placing your stops in the exact same erroneous locations as everybody else. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between a tight stop and a logical stop. Now, tight stops are incredibly common, mostly because they're driven by this emotional desire to minimize risk on paper. Usually, it's just some arbitrary dollar amount you're afraid to lose. But in reality, placing a tight stop relies entirely on hope. You're basically just hoping the price immediately moves in your favor without giving the market any natural breathing room at all. A logical stop, by contrast, relies purely on market mechanics. It's placed at a level where if it gets hit, your original trade thesis is undeniably proven wrong. It's usually tucked safely away beyond major structural pivot points, like an obvious swing high or low. So the absolutely crucial point here is that a tight stop completely ignores market structure while a logical stop totally respects it. To truly get why tight stops fail, we've got to talk about liquidity zones. These are specific areas in the market where massive amounts of orders are concentrated. Think about institutional buyers and large market makers like whales, right? Whales need deep pools of water to swim in, otherwise they just get beached. Well, in the market, that deep water is liquidity. When you, along with thousands of other retail traders, place tight stops right behind a recent obvious low or high, you're collectively creating a massive, deep pool of liquidity. Remember, a stop loss for a long position is actually a sell order. So a massive cluster of retail sell orders is a super attractive target for those whales who need to buy in bulk without causing massive slippage. Your tight stop inadvertently acts like a giant magnet within these liquidity zones, practically drawing the market right to your position to absorb all those orders. Let's move to and see how this builds. Here is the exact sequence that causes so much of that frustration we talked about. It plays out like a perfectly choreographed, albeit really painful story. Step 1. Traders place tight stops right at obvious, exposed levels, naturally creating that clustered liquidity zone we just broke down. Step 2. Price naturally targets that liquidity. Remember, those large market participants literally need those orders to fill their own massive positions, so the market naturally gravitates toward those deep pools. Step 3. Those tight stops are hit. Your order is swallowed right up, and you're officially stopped out of your trade. And finally, step 4, the market reverses direction. Having safely absorbed the necessary liquidity from all those retail traders, the price now moves in the originally predicted direction. The big players got the shares they needed at a massive discount, and the individual trader is just left sitting on the sidelines. Which brings us to our final, absolutely critical takeaway for this explainer. Are your stops placed logically or just tightly? Understanding the mechanical difference between these two concepts is literally the thing that separates traders who constantly fall into liquidity traps from those who empower themselves to navigate safely around them. By recognizing exactly where massive amounts of retail orders are predictably concentrated, you can start tucking your stops safely outside of those magnetic zones. You can rely on actual market mechanics instead of just hoping for the best. So, as you prepare for your next trades, I really want you to challenge yourself with this question. Make sure your placements are based on actual market structure, not just a tight, emotional safety net that ultimately acts as a giant target.